Welcome back, or welcome to the channel if it's your first time. This one is going to be about cleaning up this top gray deck. This is faded so bad that you can't even really see that. You know, there's no shine on it here. I took a little bit of, I think 400, and I wet sanded it. I don't know if you can see it here, but there's a little bit of shine like right in here just to see if it would clean up, and it does. Here's what it is supposed to look like from the factory. You can see that. You know, it looks pretty good. There's a little bit of a sparkle there, but I think we can get that shine back. We do have all new stickers, so we're going to use a heat gun here to soften up the stickers. These are plastic razor blades, you know, so you don't have to cut into the actual gel coat, and some stuff to clean it up with. You know, acetone, which is kind of my go-to, but mineral spirits is a little bit less harsh. But that is what we're going to do, is take these decals off, step number one. So takes a little bit of elbow grease and some acetone, but you can get all the sticky glue residue off there. This all completely came off. You remember the little black box around that? Okay, well, that actually went faster than I thought. So all in all, the stickers are off and we are ready to wet sand. 320 here is what I'm using, and this seems to be doing a pretty good job. Just going to kind of show you. Like this. But I do want this top oxidized, yellowing, dull stuff to go away for sure. Spray that off. So that's actually looking pretty good. Now, you can't judge things when they're wet because everything looks better when it's wet. Okay, got one side done with the first round. I ended up using 320. The 400 was just too hard and taking too long to get through this yellowing kind of stuff. But I think I got most of it. Starting to look good. This is not the actual shine, it's just wet. But pretty happy with the color, you know. I could work on it a little bit more and blend it in better, but it's close enough for me. Like I've been saying, I'm not trying to make this thing perfect. I think it's going to come out pretty good. Now what we're going to do is we're going to have to repair some of these gouges in the gel coat. Those are the three worst right there. If anything, get those done. And there's a couple of little small scratch surface ones here. We'll fill those in. There's another one right here. Little tiny one right there on the inside. Almost not worth worrying about because it's under the seat. But while we got all our stuff out, may as well. We got one right here. A couple of little small spots. Even though I've sanded this side, I'm going to go ahead and fill those in. So, and before we do this though, you got to make sure you clean these out real good. So I'm actually using a Dremel with a zip bit on the end of it. And I want to try to do this with one hand so you can see what's going on here. Clean these out with acetone. surrounded these areas with some painter's tape. You don't have to do this, especially since we're sanding all this down anyway, but it's just a way to keep any accidental or excess gel coat from getting on places that you don't want it and having to rush to wipe it off, or worse, having to sand it off later. So we've got a couple of places like that. And then even some of these little places. Takes a little bit of time to do that, but you know, it's kind of good to have all that protected. Meanwhile, we've got our gel coat table set up. You want to get everything here at arm's reach. I've got it in the shade so that the sun's not going to hit it and accelerate anything that we don't want accelerated. Made a couple of makeshift tools here, these little spreaders just out of a plastic carton that I had laying around. I don't think I'm going to need these. These are just some plastic razor blades if I really want to get in there and scrape some residue off. I can. Wooden stirring thingamajiggers. Got a little very clean political sign, piece of a political sign if I want to mix on that. I'm going to mix the white gel coat, which you can see here, and a little bit of this black pigment in this cup. And there's going to be a mix until I get the color just right. Then I'm going to add the catalyst, which the clock is going to start ticking when I do that. We've got to put it on. So I got to make sure I get the color right first before I do that. Here's our first stab at it. Mix. I've got all that pretty stirred up, and I'm going to kind of compare it with this as best I can. And, well, that actually looks pretty close. It's not going to be perfect, and it is what it is, so we're going to go ahead and mix the catalyst here. I'm probably going to put about 5 drops in there. Okay, so put one little layer on. It's a little runnier than I hoped, but I think the color actually looks pretty good, to be honest with you. I mean, it's close enough, but it is a little runny, so you can see I've cleaned around the outside. I took a rag with some acetone. If you kind of work at it, you can get it off. It's better to do that now than try to sand it off, because it's very hard to sand off, and you'll end up taking too much around the, you know, off around the surrounding gel coat doing that. So clean it up as best you can, but probably about one more layer of that, and that'll be done. Here, I'm gonna, because it's wax gel coat, you know, what's happened is that surfactant is on the surface here. So if I try to put gel coat right on top of that stuff, you know, it's not going to bond very well. Basically, think of it as some candle wax on top of that. It's not quite like that, but it sort of is. But I'm going to let that set and not completely cure, but I'm going to let it harden pretty good. And then I'm going to sand it a little bit before I put this next coat on. Okay, well, I've tried several times to mix the right shade of gray, and just black and white isn't going to do it. Gray is a complex color, and you know, it's either too dark, or in this case it has kind of a bluish look to it. If you compare that to the surrounding, I don't know if it comes through on the camera, but to me, looking at it with my eyes, there's a little bit of kind of a goldish kind of, you know, almost a dirty look to it, which I think probably is a little bit from oxidation and just the age of it. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to add just a little bit of brown to it and see if I can tone that color back in the direction of what we have here, because that's really going to stick out like a sore thumb. Okay, so the brown and a little bit of yellow did the trick. Just very, very carefully introduce a little bit at a time. Probably took me, you know, 10 or 12 mixes, just gradually adding a little bit more in here. And there's no catalyst in it, so it'll stay wet. And so what I did is I did some samples here on the hull that you can see, or maybe you can't see, but you know, obviously this is where I started out too bright, still a little bit too bright. Added a little bit more brown, started adding yellow, and then right about here is where it really started to blend in pretty well. And then this one is kind of the last piece to it. And that's pretty close. And then I also did some spots down here that are facing into the sun. And these top two on the top, same thing, mostly gray. And then I started adding a little bit of yellow, maybe a tick of brown, and then got down to this. And that's pretty close. So I'm just going to stop there, and that ought to be much closer than where we were, which is somewhere about here. You know, now we're really kind of getting down to splitting hair, so I think that's going to be good enough. Okay, now we put about 3 layers on here and set up pretty good, and I'm just going to peel this off, and already I can tell that color is just about spot on. Way better than our last attempt. All right, well, after many hours of wet sanding, we finally made it up to 2,500. We did started with about 800 for some of the rough spots in the gel coat. I think I even did 600 in a couple of places, and brought it up to 1,000, then 1,500, 2,000, and then 25,000. And as you can see, she's already got a pretty good shine to her. Like, especially this place up here is really smooth and beginning to shine just with sandpaper. And we're going to use some of this ultra cut compound. This is pretty aggressive. You know, you can stop at about 1,200 and it'll take over. If you want to spend a lot of time on the polisher, which is what we're going to use here. This is a Porter Cable, a variable speed polisher. I actually like the ones that are cordless. I wish I would have gotten one of those, but that's what we're going to use. And we're going to take it easy. There's no need to press hard and do any deep cutting because, like I said, we're already at 2,500, so we're almost there. Just a quick couple of passes over that, and we'll see what that looks like, and then we'll move on. All right, well, first peek at what a polisher and good compound will do for you. I just did the back around the bulb and that back shoulder there, and then this part here, and you can tell that's really come to life there, shined up really good, polished out really nice. I'm not really set up now to film this. I need 3 hands, but I'm just going to show you. I have little water that I spray on that wool cloth, and then I put a little bit of a ring, about that much, on it, and then kind of tap it all on there, get it covered just a little bit, and then I run it on the slow speed to smooth it all out, and then I immediately come behind that with a 4 or 5 and just keep working on it until all the compound's mostly gone. And then what I'm doing is I'm wiping the excess off with just paper towel instead of a microfiber, just to get most of it off, and then I'm following it with a microfiber towel. Spray it on, put the decal on, spray a little on the back of that decal, and then take the squeegee, smooth it out like this. Wow, that is really looking sweet. Squeegee it in real carefully. If you feel it, rub your hand over it, and if you feel little bubbles or anything like that in there, push them out. They'll go out to the bottom because it's still a little bit wet in there, but you want to get all the little bubbles and things out of it until it lays flat, just like that. Okay, so got the official Sea-Doo brand logo there underneath the rub rail. And at first I thought that was too big and maybe I had the wrong decal. But then I looked at this one. Good to have skis to compare with, and it is the same size. So that looks ridiculously great. Real happy with that. Again, any of those little bubbles out, and sometimes they're going to create little wrinkles around the top, so you got to look for those. You got to watch them real close. You got to go over the whole entire edge, and if you see any little buckles or anything like that, you got to squeegee them out and smooth them out. These decals will give. They'll stretch and they'll expand, so you just got to push them in place. Okay, running out of daylight here. One of the last pieces here is putting this on here. Not a big deal. There's a little hole there, but instead of cutting the hole out, I'm gonna lay it on first, get it all situated, and then we'll cut the hole out with a razor blade. Okay, well, this is the final result here, minus still got a little work to do on the rub rails, but everything else is completely done. All wet sanded, polished out, waxed, buff, new decals. Went ahead and put the hydro turf on it and had to use contact cement because this one did not have the 3M peel-aways on it for some reason. Not sure how I ended up with that, but that was no big deal. A little more tedious and time-consuming. But I just can't be more satisfied with how this turned out, especially with where we started from. So thanks everybody for watching. Hope this gives you a little bit of inspiration on what you can do with gel coat, color matching, and wet sanding and polishing, and end up with something that looks pretty good. So thanks for watching, and we'll catch you later.